Hi Ron, and welcome to another Wargaming Terrain tutorial. This week we're going to be looking at building this guard tower here. Now this guard tower, the main structure of this is pretty simple, but we are going to complicate things a little bit by building these stairs as well. And we're going to pull together a couple of different techniques that I've used in different videos over the last couple of months. I'll point those out as we go through. I hope you enjoy the video, and I hope you have a go at this because it is a fantastic looking little building, as you can see. Let's get stuck into it. Now for the main structure of this building, I'm using foam board. You probably use cardboard here, but foam board's really good because it will give us a nice concrete look and allows us to sort of carve in some cracks and things like that into it as well. The dimensions are down there below. You could probably change those to suit your needs, but make sure that you are allowing enough room for those stairs if you're going to put the stairs on there to creep around the side of this building. So to join these up to make the tower structure, what I'm going to do is just carve these into, I'll carve a 45 angle along the long edge of all of these, just so that these, when I glue them together, they'll butt up and give us some nicer, slightly sharper corners. This doesn't have to be perfect, these cuts. Just do your best. A steady hand and a sharp knife here will give you a pretty good result. And at the end of the day, you'll see on mine, these don't join up perfectly, but they still look fantastic. So don't sweat this too much. Just do your best to get through cutting these at that 45. Like I said, just take it nice and slow and you should be able to get through that pretty easily. And you can see here, even though these weren't perfect cuts, they're going to join up just fine. So the other thing I'm going to do here is just a little detail for the outside of the building. I'm just scoring a little line on these. This just gives us a little bit of a join in the concrete structure. You don't need to do that. It just adds a little extra detail there. So all I'm going to do for these is hot glue. This seems to work fine, sets really quickly. Just be careful, obviously the hot glue can melt the foam a little bit, so and it is really tricky if you do let this dry before you get the glue, get the joint glued together. So try to work as quick as you can. Make sure you've got your lines. If you've scored those lines that I did on the outside, make sure that they line up. Ripping this apart doesn't do great things for the foam if you're trying to pull this hot glue apart. But basically just join those four sides together exactly like that until you get that main structure. As I said, the hot glue here dries really quickly, so you should be able to get that built up nice and quickly. And the next thing we're going to do is just put a cap on the top so that we've got a platform to stand on. So make sure your hot glue is dried and you've got this as square as possible. To make the cap for the end or the platform, basically just sit it down on a piece of foam core and you can just mark that out and cut it. It's really quite simple, not much to that. We'll just hot glue that down onto the top of the platform, so make sure you know which side is going to be your top and which is going to be your bottom. I've scored that line not in the middle, so I do have a top and a bottom that I'm working on. The next thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to frame the top and the bottom with these stirring sticks. This just gave it a little bit of extra detail around it, made it look quite nice. Again, you're just marking this out on the building itself and just hot gluing these sticks into place. Now once you've got that done, you'll see here also what I've done is just add a little door to the front of this building. Now to do that, I just use cereal box cardboard in the exact same way I did when I made the doors for the shipping containers. So if you haven't seen that, there's a link at the top of the screen for that video, but it's very simple, not much to that at all. Again, just adds another little piece of detail to the building. Now these sticks here, I'm not exactly sure what they are. I found them in the catering section of the cheap shop. These are bamboo, I think. The reason I really like these is that the skewer part of these is square and it's quite thick, so this will work perfectly for the supports for our roof on our guard tower. I'm not going to cut these or change these at all at the moment. These will glue in nicely. They have that big flat section on the end which helps us with the glue up, so a little bit more contact point there. To put these through, what I do is just feed them through the bottom. You want to try and make sure that these are as straight as possible, so what I do is just lay it on the table like that and just press them in, making sure again that they are as square as possible to the building. So once you've got them in place, you can feed those right through, then you've got your holes ready to go. So we can just pull these out, add some glue then, and push them back in and make sure that they are sitting pretty straight. Once you've got them pushed through the top, just make sure again that they are square and straight up and down. It's pretty easy for them to sort of skewer off to the side, so keep an eye on those as you push them through. Make sure they're nice straight up and down. Now you do want to leave that to dry. You don't want to start this next part of this process while those are still wet, because we will be applying a little bit of pressure as we put this roof on. Now all I've done is just cut another piece of foam board, same size as the footprint of the building. Now when you're pushing this down on here, you do want to make sure that you are pushing it down at the angle, or roughly at the angle that you want your roof to sit. So don't try and push it on flat and pierce it through, because you're going to then try and twist it, which is going to put extra pressure and perhaps change these or you know, push these pillars off square. So try and push it down at the angle roughly that you want it to sit on the building, and that'll make sure it doesn't sort of distort those supports that we've put in place there. So once you've got that pushed down and roughly where you want to put it at the height you want it, you just go through and mark those with a pencil or a pen or something, and we'll come through and trim those off with the garden shears again. These are pretty thick sticks, so you probably won't get through these with a pair of scissors. Now do make sure you mark where is the top and the front of your roof here, so that when you do put it back on, it does go back on the same way. Just make sure all the lines, all the holes, sorry, line up properly, and when we put it back on, it should sit nice and exactly where we want it. So as you can see there, that's all in place. I haven't glued it at this stage. I will go back and put some glue on those a little bit later on. Just allows me to take it off if I need to while I'm doing this next part. So the next thing we're going to do is put on the little walls around the top of the guard tower there. For this I need some little supports in the middle of those main uprights we've got there, so I'm just getting some matchsticks, just sort of shaving these off with my craft knife down to a bit of a point. This just allows it to push through that foam a little bit easier. So what I want is on the three sides where I'm going to have the walls, I'm going to put in one of these middle supports. Basically just you know, cut it to the size you want it and push it down into that foam board. It should sit pretty good. It's not you know, it's not going to be exactly sturdy at this stage. Once we put a bit of pressure on there, as you'll see, it will move around and bend, but we just want these in place for the time being, and then we will hit them with some glue a little bit later on. So once you've got the three of those in there, you're ready to start looking at these little wooden walls. Now when we're putting these on, I'm just using the stirring sticks. You'll find these will be perfect for this. They're flexible, they're not too thick, and they will work for the way we're going to build this wall. Most of this is going to be covered up, so you could go about this however you like. What I found is it's kind of like weaving them on there, I guess. I'm not sure the proper term for this, but as you can see, they're basically going to be putting pressure on that center piece, that center upright that we've put in place there, and we're just going to work these against each other, and it will pull them back straight. So make sure you've got these trimmed down to, you know, as tight as you can get them to fit in there. So you don't want these little sticks to be overhanging too much. It will affect when we put the sides on. So you'll probably notice in a minute I'm going to actually have to pull this apart and cut some of these sticks back to the way they should have been. So it's a little bit of trial and error to get this all to line up when you're going putting these sides on. But as you can see, they will sit in place properly, or they sit in place pretty firmly without any glue. They'll just sit there, but we will add a fair bit of PVA glue to all these joints and all these places where there's contact or supports. So here you can see I'm just trimming up these sticks a little bit again, just so that these side ones go on properly. A little bit of trial and error. There's not much to this, as you can see. It didn't take me too long to get this all trimmed up and in place properly. So long as you've got those middle supports pushed down far enough, they shouldn't peel out or break off as you're going through. Just be a little bit careful as you go through, and you will get to the desired result. Now I've put 3 on each side, obviously leaving the back for the entrance. And as you can see here, once you've got that in place and it's looking pretty good, just hit all the joints with a fair dollop of PVA glue there, just so that that'll hold those in place once it's dried. The next thing we're going to do is add some sandbags. Now I'll put a link to the video for this. I'm not going to make them in this video because I did do that last time. Now to put these on, it's just a big bead of and a nice hefty bead of PVA glue along there. Pretty much exactly the same as we made the sandbag walls, but this time we're just building it onto the side of the structure here. There should be enough of a ledge there for these to go on without too much trouble. Just work your way around until you've got that built up to the desired height, and you'll see straight away it starts to look really good. We've covered up that a lot of that timber structure behind it, but I think having both there works really well. So it is worth putting that extra time in to get that done like that. As you can see, that's looking really good. You do want to be very liberal with the PVA glue on that one, just to make sure that they aren't going to fall off or break at any stage. So now we're going to get stuck into building these stairs. So the first thing we want to do is make a little jig for to set these up and glue them up. Once you've got this little jig, you can reuse it over and over, so building this once is enough to get through multiple sets of stairs. All we're going to do is grab some matchsticks on a base of cardboard. You want to snap these matchsticks to be less than the length of your actual stairs. So my stairs are going to be 3 centimeters wide. So I've made sure I've snapped those down to be less than that. We can trim them up after the fact, after we've glued them down, but you will find that if you can snap them down to roughly the right length at the first time through, you'll find that makes it a bit easier down the track. Now you do want to put a bead of glue down the middle, making sure you're not gluing all the way to the ends of these matchsticks. It just makes it a bit easier for trimming them up a bit later on. Now the next thing I'm going to do there is just put a support along the side. Now I've glued this too far away from my matchstick, so I did have to pull it off and put it back in there, but you'll see in the next shot that I've trimmed it up, and I've trimmed up all the matchsticks, and I've actually moved that support in a little bit closer. The reason for that you'll see very shortly. So you want to make sure the distance between each of these matchsticks is roughly the width of another matchstick. So try and get them as even as possible. It doesn't really matter, but the stairs are going to look janky no matter what. But yeah, the more careful you can be with that, the better. Now I've just used some stirring sticks again, and I've cut all these down to 3 centimeters. Now you can see that I've got enough room there where I can place a stirring stick along the side, and also one at the top without actually impacting those glued down matchsticks. So I know it's a bit hard to explain, but you'll see as I go through the video here exactly what I'm talking about. So this is going to be the side rail for our stairs, so you can just sort of get these into place, make a few small adjustments, and we're going to get our stirring stick here, add a bit of PVA glue, and we're just going to line that along that side rail that we've glued in, that paddle pop stick we've glued along the side there. So just place that in there, and this next shot, I'm sorry it's not the best shot, but it will show you basically what we're going to do. So we've got 2 stirring sticks along the sides. These are the side rails for our stairs, and I'm just using my mat here just to sort of, as a bit of a vice, to push these all together. Now the trick here is that your stairs are going to, if you're hand cutting these, it's going to be very, very lucky if you can get these to be all exactly the same length. So you're going to probably have some that don't contact properly, but what we're going to do is add some extra glue on these once you've got them a little bit dry. Now you do want to be taking these off this jig after about 5 or 10, maybe 15 minutes before the glue is fully dry. You just want to make sure that you don't glue that down to the jig. Now you'll see here that once you've got these dried up, they do look pretty good. Again, leave them in there as long as you can. Make sure that these are dry, fully dry, before you start playing around with them. That PVA glue does take a little while, and you don't want these to be breaking apart as you're cutting them. Now because our stairs are going to wrap around the side of the building, we do need a little platform here just to join these two together and wrap around the side. Again, I'm just making sure that the width of this little platform is as wide or just a little bit wider than the width of my stairs. So you can just sort of place that up against your building, make sure that it is going to give you enough enough there for the second set of stairs to go on. Trimming up your stairs, you'll probably find they're not going to be the exact length you want them to be for your building, so I just found hitting them with a craft knife and working your way through will get them trimmed down to the right length for you. Now we're just going to quickly test fit this to make sure it's going to sit on there properly. Make a few markings, and as I said, again, just make sure that everything's going to line up. It's best to get this right before you glue it on. Very hard to cut this once you've put it on there, so do your best to just do a bit of a test fit on that and get it in there and get it trimmed up. Now hot glue works best for this. Again, it's nice and quick. It'll put it straight on there and we'll be able to move through this build pretty quick at this point using this hot glue. You could probably PVA it on there, but I found hot glue worked just fine. We're going to add some supports to this at the end anyway, so don't worry too much about it. Now here I'm just going to glue on my platform. Again, making sure that we've got enough room around that side for that second set of stairs to butt up on there. So long as you put some good marks on there, you shouldn't have too much trouble with this. With the platform on there, we can now look at the second set of stairs going up to the top of the tower. Again, test fit this before you glue it, just to make sure you're not going to make any mistakes or you haven't, shorted yourself on the number of stairs that you need. Putting this in place is pretty easy. Again, nice and quick with that hot glue. And we'll add the second platform on here as well. Now I'm not going to go into a great lot of detail on adding all the supports and the handrails on this stair. It's basically just PVA glue, matchsticks and a bit of patience for this. So because we're using PVA glue for the handrails, it does take a little while to dry, so you want to sort of work your way through this pretty slowly. Like I said, a bit of patience with your PVA glue before you move on to each new support or rail that you're putting on. For the sides here, I'm just using some toothpicks, just push straight down, and from this we will start building our handrails and adding on our little bits of detail on the outside here. You can add in as much as you need. You'll see in the next shot here where I've put these rails and supports. You can just stick in things through the bottom, as you can see there. This doesn't have to be perfect. This is really janky looking, but this is as far as I'm concerned, this is an add-on to this structure, so it's not it wasn't part of the main structure when it was built. Something that's been put on there and worked into this building already. So it doesn't matter, it doesn't need to be perfect. You can see this is certainly not perfect, but this gives us a lot of extra support on here and holds everything in place pretty well. As I mentioned, gluing these on can get a little bit frustrating. Like I said, it takes a bit of patience to work with that PVA glue, but if you let this set and add a bit of extra PVA glue once it's in place, you'll find that is going to be nice and strong. Getting thrown around the table is probably not going to survive, but this looks really good. I mean, if you're just looking for items for your shelf, or if you're going to be careful with it, you'll find this is going to look great. So the next thing I'm going to do is just add a couple of little supports underneath these platforms, and I want these to go in at an angle. So again, I've just cut down the points of these matchsticks to make them go into this foam board a little bit easier. Now when you're pushing them in, you want to try and put them on the angle that you roughly want them to sit. Butt them up against the bottom of that platform as best you can. And what you'll find is once you sort of pierce this in and get it in, you'll be able to push the top bit up into the foam board platform just enough for it to sit there and look like it's part of that structure. So as you can see here, just angled in and pushed in, and it looks perfect. So you'll see with this one exactly what I mean. I've just put them in there at the angle roughly where I want them to sit and push them through the side wall, and then just give it a little push up into the top of the platform, and it really does look like it's part of that structure. So we'll add some glue to these joints as well, and as you can see, looking pretty good so far. I've added another one under that big platform, and we're just about done with this building now. You could probably stop here if you wanted to. I am going to add some extra details just around the concrete of this building. To do this, all we did was exactly the same thing we did with the concrete barriers. If you remember that video, we made those out of foam board as well, and we added some cracks and different things there. I'll put a link at the top of the screen, you can see. So I won't go through the entire process of this. You can check out that video if you want to see some more of exactly how I did this, but basically just a small pen or mechanical pencil, and you'll be able to put some cracks and some divots into the concrete walls, and we are just about ready to paint. So I'm not going to go through painting in this video. We've already taken too long, I think, so I might do another video where I paint this one up for you. But I hope you enjoyed this one. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you to those that have. If you've enjoyed the video, hit like as well. Feel free to leave me a comment if you have any suggestions or ideas. And you guys have a great day.